Instructor Valak's mandibles clicked in confusion as he surveyed the 20 human cadets standing at attention in the Galactic Defense Academy's training arena. The morning sun of Kepler 442b cast long shadows across their faces, each one bearing the distinctive marks of survival training, scars, calluses, and eyes that had seen too much for their young age. "Before we begin combat assessments," Valak announced, his 4 eyes scanning the formation, "I must verify your training credentials. The records indicate anomalies in your background data." He tapped his datapad with a chitinous claw. "Standard protocol requires identification of your primary instructor during developmental cycles." The question was routine. Every species in the Galactic Coalition had regulated training programs for their young. Mentors were licensed, facilities were inspected, and progress was meticulously documented. Humans had joined the Coalition only 5 years ago, and their training methods were still under review. "Who raised these cubs?" Valak asked, using the universal term for juvenile trainees. Without hesitation, all 20 cadets turned their heads in perfect synchronization. 20 fingers pointed toward the back of the arena, where a single human female sat on the equipment crate, her boots propped up casually, a worn jacket draped over her shoulders. Valak's primary eyes narrowed. "Explain." Cub Sira, the smallest of the group but with eyes like sharpened steel, stepped forward. "Lieutenant Sarah Chen, sir." "She raised all of us." "Impossible," Valak clicked. "One instructor cannot properly educate 20 cubs." "She didn't just educate us, sir," Sira interrupted, then quickly added, "Permission to speak freely?" Valak's antennae twitched with curiosity. "Granted, she saved us." The woman in question finally stood, walking forward with the easy confidence of someone who had nothing to prove. Sarah Chen was unremarkable by human standards. Average height, brown hair pulled back in a practical knot, clothes that had seen better days. But something in the way she moved made Valak's combat-trained instincts prickle with awareness. "Instructor Valak," Sarah said, nodding respectfully. "I suppose you'll want the full story." "That would be prudent." Sarah glanced at her cadets, and something unspoken passed between them. Pride, gratitude, family. "6 years ago, I was a salvage pilot working the Outer Rim," she began. "Found a derelict colony ship drifting near the Helix Nebula. The Meridian. It had been hit by raiders, Crixian slavers. From the looks of it, the adults were all dead, but in the cargo hold, I found these 20 kids, ranging from 4 to 12 years old, locked in stasis pods." Valak's mandibles parted slightly. "And you? Kept them?" "What else was I going to do?" Sarah's voice carried an edge. "Earth was 3 months away, and my ship barely had life support for 5 people, let alone 21. I couldn't turn them over to local authorities. Half the stations in that sector would have sold them to the highest bidder." Sira spoke again. "She taught us to survive. The ship's fabricator broke down in week 2. We had to ration food. She gave us her portions." Another cadet, a tall boy with a scarred cheek, added, "When the water recycler failed, she showed us how to extract moisture from the ship's condensation systems." The navigation computer crashed in the asteroid field near Proxima. A girl with short-cropped hair continued. "She taught us manual piloting while dodging rocks the size of mountains." Valak's datapad nearly slipped from his grip. "You taught Cub's children to pilot a starship during an asteroid transit?" Sarah shrugged. "They learned, didn't they? Sira here can thread a needle at 0.4 light speed now." "That's insane." "That's human," Sarah corrected. "When we finally reached Earth, I thought I'd hand them over to proper authorities, get them into the system, but they didn't want to go. And honestly, I didn't want to let them, so you continued their training. I taught them everything I knew. Navigation, engineering, combat, survival, how to read people, how to trust their instincts." Sarah's expression softened. "How to be a family when the universe takes everything else from you." Valak looked at the cadets again, seeing them with new understanding. "They weren't just trained. They were forged." "Your methods are highly irregular," Valak said carefully. "No certifications. No oversight. By Coalition standards, this is no oversight." Effective, Sira interjected. Sir, with respect, we've outperformed every other cadet group in this academy. Top scores in tactical analysis. Highest marks in survival scenarios. We don't quit. We don't break. Because she taught us that quitting wasn't an option. The other cadets murmured agreement. Valak studied Sarah Chen for a long moment. In his 40 years as a combat instructor, he had trained thousands of warriors from dozens of species. He had seen the results of the finest military academies in the galaxy, but something about these human cubs was different. They moved like a unit. They thought like survivors. They had the eyes of veterans despite their youth. Lieutenant Chen, Valak finally said, your training methods violate approximately 17 coalition protocols. Sarah's jaw tightened. I know. However, Valak continued, his mandibles forming what might have been a smile. I have reviewed their performance records. In 3 months at this academy, they have exceeded every benchmark. He paused. The coalition needs warriors who can adapt, survive, and overcome impossible odds. You have delivered exactly that. Relief washed over Sarah's face. I will be recommending you for an official instructor position, Valak added, though you will need to complete the certification process. I can do that. Valak turned back to the cadets. You cubs are dismissed for today. Tomorrow, we begin advanced combat trials. I expect you to maintain your current performance standards. Yes, sir, they shouted in unison. As they filed out, Sira paused beside Sarah, looking up at the woman who had saved her life and given her purpose. Thanks, Mom, she whispered. Sarah's hand rested briefly on the girl's shoulder. Always, kiddo. Valak watched them go, his mandibles clicking thoughtfully. Perhaps humans were more remarkable than the coalition had initially assessed. They didn't just survive impossible situations, they transformed them. They turned tragedy into strength, chaos into order, strangers into family. He made a mental note to request more human instructors. The galaxy, it seemed, had much to learn from these peculiar primates, who refused to abandon their young, no matter the cost.